was 11 when Tegan Travers moved in next door to us. He'd recently lost parental rights to his 2 young girls. The moment my stepfather, Jacob Jones, saw him, he quickly approached me. "That man there is a menace," he murmured, his fingers tightening unsettlingly on my shoulder. "I'll have to take extra precautions to safeguard you, sweetheart." He then offered a peculiar smirk, almost as if he was pleased that a supposed threat had arrived next door. That evening, Jacob installed a surveillance camera, ostensibly to monitor our property, but its lens was clearly angled directly at my bedroom window. He initiated these nightly security rounds, where he'd enter my room after my mother, Laura, had fallen asleep. He'd sit on my bed, elaborating in excruciating detail on what men like Tegan supposedly intended to do. The first time I attempted to confide in Mom about the disquieting feeling Jacob gave me, she was sorting laundry in the living room. "Mom, Jacob keeps coming into my room at night and—" "Oh, Elle," she interrupted, not even glancing up. "Jacob cherishes you like his own child." "But Mom, the camera he set up is aimed at my window." She finally lifted her gaze, but her expression was one of irritation, not concern. "Stop being so melodramatic. Jacob understands these things. He oversees security at his sports club. Besides, he's just shielding you from that unnerving man next door who's always observing you." She then gave me a clumsy, half-hearted embrace before telling me to finish my assignments. Yet, something in her words felt wrong. Tegan never once seemed to notice me or any other children. When the school bus paused at our intersection, he'd retreat indoors. When families passed by, he'd turn away. But there was one peculiar thing he did. Whenever Jacob took me out alone for frozen treats or to the local park, Tegan would suddenly need to tidy his garden. When Jacob insisted on me wearing a new, overly revealing swim outfit that made me deeply uncomfortable, Tegan chose that precise moment to wash his car. Jacob's behavior grew more unsettling after that. The boisterous wrestling sessions would stretch on for too long. He insisted on assisting me with my nightly routine, like hairbrushing and picking out pajamas. Because Mom worked late, everything escalated the day Jacob cornered me in the garage. Mom was at her job, and he'd been drinking liquor all afternoon. "You're developing into quite a beautiful young lady," he slurred, placing his hands on my shoulders and pressing me against the wall. "Let me show you something special." I was paralyzed. I couldn't scream. All those lessons about stranger danger and Tegan being a menace swirled in my head. But Jacob's breath reeked of alcohol, and his hands were gripping too tightly. "Excuse me for intruding." Tegan stood in the garage entrance. My old dog Jasper got out. A scruffy terrier. "Mind if I check in here?" Jacob's entire demeanor shifted instantly. His hands dropped, and he donned his pleasant neighbor smile. "No dog here, Tegan. You should leave." But Tegan stepped inside anyway. "I'm certain I saw him dart this way. Let me just peek behind those boxes quickly." I said, "Leave." Jacob's voice sharpened. "Just need to locate my dog," Tegan stated calmly, unmoving. I slipped past Jacob and darted into the house while they held each other's gaze. That night, Mom and Jacob sat me down for a serious conversation. They asserted that Tegan was trying to dismantle our family, that I should never approach him again, and that I should always trust my stepfather because he desired what was truly best for me. I didn't believe a single word, however, because all I could think about was how Tegan had intervened. So, the next day, when I discovered Tegan walking his dog, the words simply tumbled out of me. "Jacob does things. He touches me and—" "I know," Tegan said softly. "I've been making detailed records of everything." He then drove me to the police precinct to file a report. But when we walked in, nothing went in our favor. Instead of the officers listening to a child recount her stepfather's inappropriate touching, they chuckled. They looked at Tegan and instructed him, "Stop manipulating this young girl." Jacob Jones coaches youth leagues. He operates a charitable foundation. He would never do that. You, on the other hand, it seems quite fitting given your history why you're here with this little girl. I attempted to speak up, to defend Tegan, and articulate my truth, but a female officer actually led me away and interviewed me separately. She didn't inquire about my stepfather. She questioned me solely about Tegan, and no amount of explanation seemed to penetrate her skepticism. They escorted both of us out of the station, but only after warning Tegan they'd arrest him if he made another report. The police must have contacted Jacob immediately after we departed, because when I arrived home, both he and Mom were waiting in the living room. Mom's face was flushed with rage as she seized my shoulders and shook me. "Do you comprehend what people will say? Jacob's standing could be ruined because of you." I saw him behind her, gazing at me, his hand resting on his trousers. That night, he entered my room. I won't describe what transpired, but when he finally left, I could barely move. I lay there for an hour, perhaps two, too traumatized to speak, cry, or do anything. Then, when they were finally asleep, I did something I had never dared before. I unlatched my window as quietly as possible and climbed out. I desperately needed assistance. I limped across the darkened yard to Tegan's residence and knocked softly on his back door. And when he opened it, that's when I saw them. His 2 daughters on the sofa in the living room, covered in bruises. My heart seized. The contusions on their arms and legs appeared fresh, purple, and yellow marks that made my stomach clench. Fear surged through me like icy water. Was Tegan hurting them too? Had I just escaped one monster, only to run straight to another? The older girl, perhaps 9, noticed me first. Her eyes widened, and she sprang from the sofa, rushing toward me. I stumbled backward, poised to flee. But then she spoke. "Dad, is she all right?" "She's bleeding." The younger one, likely 7, scrambled after her sister. "She looks badly hurt, Daddy. Like we did when Mommy—" "Girls, to your room." Tegan interjected quickly, but his voice remained gentle. They hesitated, looking between me and their father with concerned expressions. But Dad, she needs help like we did, the older one insisted. Remember when you found us at Mom's? Adrian, please take your sister upstairs. I'll help her. The girls reluctantly headed for the stairs, but not before the younger one grasped my hand. It's okay. Our dad rescues people. He saved us from Mommy. Their words spun in my head as Tegan carefully helped me to the couch. My legs trembled so violently I could barely stand. He retrieved a throw blanket and draped it around my shoulders, then sat in a chair across from me, maintaining a respectful distance. I need to call an ambulance, he said, reaching for his phone. No, the word tore from me. They'll send me back. Mom won't believe me. The police already think you're lying. Tegan slowly set the phone down. His hands trembled slightly. Your injuries require... Your daughters, I interrupted, needing to comprehend. Those bruises, did you... Their mother inflicted those. His voice hardened, but not at me. She's had them for the past 3 months. They called me crying 2 days ago. Said she'd been drinking again, getting violent. I drove 4 hours and found them locked in a closet. He stood and walked to a filing cabinet, extracting a thick folder. I've been documenting her mistreatment for 2 years. Photographs, medical records, audio recordings. The court still granted her primary custody because she convinced them I was unstable. He showed me photo after photo. His daughters with black eyes, bruised ribs, cuts on their arms, medical reports, text messages from his ex-wife threatening to harm them if he didn't send more money. But you lost custody, I said, bewildered. She's adept at manipulation, just like Jacob. He put the folder away and sat back down. She told the judge I was violent. Paid a friend to falsely testify about witnessing me strike the girls. The court believed her because... He paused, running a hand through his hair. Because I have a past. Nothing involving children, but enough that when she portrayed me as dangerous, it stuck. The room felt too silent. I pulled the blanket tighter around me. I need to document what Jacob did to you, Tegan said carefully. Photos of any injuries. Write down everything you remember. We'll construct a case they can't dismiss. They already dismissed us once. That was one attempt. We don't stop. He grabbed a notebook and pen. Start from the beginning. When did Jacob first... A car door slammed outside. We both froze. Through the window, I saw Jacob's truck in our driveway, earlier than usual. Mom's car pulled up behind him. He knows I'm gone, I whispered. Tegan moved quickly but calmly. Girls, he called up the stairs. Quiet time. Stay in your room. He led me to his kitchen, away from windows. They cannot legally force you back tonight. You're injured and reporting abuse, but they'll try. The pounding on his front door began less than a minute later. Tegan, open up. I know she's in there. Jacob's voice boomed through the house. Tegan looked at me. Do you want me to answer? I nodded, too terrified to speak. He walked to the door, but didn't open it. She's secure, Jacob. Go home. Secure? You kidnapped her. Open this door, or I'm contacting the authorities. Please do. Tegan replied evenly. I'll show them her injuries. Silence. Then Mom's voice, shaky and high. Please, Tegan, she's disoriented. She fabricates stories. Just let me take my daughter home. She's not fabricating anything, and you know it. More silence. Then Jacob again. Lower, more menacing. You have no comprehension who you're antagonizing. I know people, influential people. You think losing your kids was difficult? I'll obliterate what's left of your pathetic existence. Everything you're uttering is being recorded, Tegan announced. Please continue your threats. Jacob kicked the door hard enough to rattle the frame. You're finished. Do you hear me? Finished. We heard them arguing as they walked away. Mom's voice carried back. Perhaps we should just call the police. Let them sort... Shut up, Jacob snapped. You want everyone to know your daughter's a fabricator? That she's troubled? I'll manage this. Their car doors slammed. Engines started, but instead of departing, they sat in their driveway watching Tegan's house. They're not leaving, I said, peeking through the blinds. Good. Let them observe. Tegan handed me the notebook again. Write everything. Date it. Be precise. I began writing, my hand trembling so badly the words appeared as scribbles. Tegan prepared tea and placed it beside me, then went to check on his daughters. I heard him reading them a story, his voice calm, as if none of this was occurring. An hour passed. Jacob's truck still idled in the driveway. I'd filled 3 pages when Tegan returned downstairs. They're asleep, he said. How are you feeling? Frightened, exhausted, everything aches. He nodded. In the morning, we'll go to the clinic. Get your injuries properly documented, then find a solicitor. Jacob claims he knows people. So do I. Different kinds of people. People who genuinely assist children instead of harming them. The notebook felt heavy in my lap. What if no one believes us again? Then we persist. We find someone who will. He sat across from me again. I've been observing Jacob for months. The way he looks at you. The pretext to be alone with you. I started keeping notes, capturing pictures when I could, like when he made you wear that swim outfit. I have photos of him watching you. His expression. The way he positioned that outdoor pool so he could view it from multiple windows. Tegan pulled out another folder. I've documented every incident I've witnessed. The late-night visits to your room when your mother's car isn't home. The times he's taken you out alone. How you appear when you return. Page after page of meticulous notes, times, dates, observations, photos taken from his window showing Jacob leading me to his truck. My body language screaming discomfort. Why did you do all this? Because I recognize the patterns. The grooming, the isolation, the way he was setting you up. His voice softened. My ex-wife did the same thing to our girls. Convinced everyone I was dangerous, while she was the one hurting them. I couldn't allow it to happen to another child. A knock at the back door made us both jump, but it wasn't Jacob. Mr. Tegan Travers, a small voice called. Mrs. Gwen Garrett from down the street. I observed the commotion. Is everything all right? Tegan looked at me, seeking permission with his eyes. I nodded. Gwen, who had to be at least 70, stepped inside and immediately noticed me. Her eyes took in the blanket. My tear-stained face? The notebook. Oh dear, she breathed. What has occurred? Jacob hurt me? I said before I could stop myself. He's been hurting me and no one believes me except Tegan. She sat down heavily in a kitchen chair. I've often wondered about the way that man watches you, how uneasy you become around him. She looked at Tegan. Is that why Jacob's sitting in his driveway like a guard dog? He's attempting to intimidate us, Tegan explained. We went to the police earlier, but they didn't believe Elle. Gwen's mouth pressed into a thin line. Of course not. Jacob coaches their children, contributes to their charity events. She reached over and patted my hand. What do you require? The simple question fractured something within me. I began crying again, ugly sobs that shook my entire body. Gwen just sat there holding my hand while Tegan retrieved more tissues. We need people to know the truth, Tegan said. Jacob's going to distort this. Make me the antagonist. Claim I kidnapped her, filled her head with fabrications. Then, we had better start circulating the truth first. Gwen pulled out her phone. I'm calling my daughter. She's a social services professional in the next county. They won't have the same allegiances. While she made calls, Tegan helped me finish documenting everything. Every incident, every touch, every menace. My hand cramped from writing, but I didn't cease. Jacob's truck finally left around midnight. Tegan insisted I sleep in his daughter's room on a camping mattress on the floor. The girls awoke when I came in. Are you staying? The younger one whispered. Just tonight. That's what Dad said about us, but we've been here 2 whole days now. She sounded delighted about it. Perhaps you can stay 2 whole days too. I lay there in the dark, listening to their breathing, feeling safer than I had in months. But I knew Jacob wouldn't surrender. He'd return with a strategy, with falsehoods, with methods to harm Tegan and reclaim me. Sure enough, the next morning brought new complications. Tegan roused me early, his face grim. Jacob's been busy. Look, he showed me his phone. The neighborhood online community page was rife with posts about Tegan luring me to his house. How I'd been observed climbing through his window at night. How he'd manipulated a troubled child who invented stories about her loving stepfather. They're believing him? I said, scrolling through comment after comment endorsing Jacob. Some are, but look, he pointed to a few dissenting voices. Gwen defending us. A few others mentioning they'd noticed things too. It's not everyone. His daughters came downstairs still in pajamas. Can we have pancakes? The older one asked. In a moment, Adrian. First, I need you both to comprehend something. Tegan knelt down to their level. People might say unpleasant things about Daddy today, but you know the truth, correct? They nodded solemnly. You rescue people? The younger one said, like you saved us from Mommy? That's right. And sometimes, when you endeavor to rescue people, other people become angry. A car pulled up outside. Through the window, I saw a woman in professional attire exit, followed by Gwen. That's my daughter Nia, Gwen said when Tegan let them in. She drove 2 hours to get here. Nia resembled a younger version of her mother, with the same resolute set to her jaw. She took one look at me and her expression softened. I'm a mandated reporter, she stated, which means I have to file a report about what's happened to you, but I can file it in my county where Jacob lacks connections. They'll just send me back, I said. Not if we execute this correctly. First, we need to get you to a medical clinic. Document everything. Then, we file reports with multiple agencies. Child Protective Services, State Police, anyone who will listen. Jacob will claim Tegan kidnapped me. Then, we'll prove otherwise. Tegan, do you possess security camera footage? He nodded. They'll show her coming here on her own. Injured, seeking aid. Excellent. We'll require that footage. Naya turned to me. This won't be simple. Jacob will retaliate. He'll attempt to discredit everyone assisting you. Are you prepared for that? I pondered, returning. About more nights with Jacob. About Mom choosing him over me repeatedly. I'm ready. The next few hours blurred together. The clinic where a kind nurse photographed every bruise and cut. The police station in the next county where officers genuinely listened. Naya filing report after report, making calls, refusing to let anyone dismiss us. But Jacob wasn't inactive. By afternoon, he'd convinced half the neighborhood that Tegan was a predator who'd abducted his daughters and was now targeting me. He'd even persuaded some parents to usher their children indoors when Tegan walked by. He's isolating us, Tegan said, observing from his window as neighbors whispered and pointed, making it more arduous for us to receive support. His phone rang. The school stating his daughters couldn't return until the situation was resolved. Then another call. His employer suggesting he take some time off while matters were sorted out. He's attempting to destroy you, I said. Because of me. No, he's attempting to silence you. There's a distinction. But I could discern the strain on his face. His daughters watched animated shows, oblivious to how their world was shrinking. That evening, things escalated. We were eating dinner when we heard shouting outside. A group of neighbors had gathered in Jacob's yard, listening to him weave his fabrications. He's had those girls for 3 days now. Jacob's voice carried clearly. Won't permit their mother to see them? Now he's got my stepdaughter in there, filling her head with falsehoods about me. We should contact Child Protective Services, someone suggested. I did. Jacob lied smoothly. They're investigating him, but these matters require time. And meanwhile, our children aren't secure. Tegan closed the drapes, but we could still hear them planning patrols, watching his house, protecting their children from the perilous man next door. Dad, Adrian looked frightened. Are they speaking about you? Yes, sweetheart, but recall what I stated. Sometimes people believe lies because they're more convenient than the truth. His phone buzzed. A text from an unfamiliar number. Return her, or matters worsen. Then another. You think you've had it bad? Wait until tomorrow. He's threatening you, I said, reading over his shoulder. Good. Threats leave evidence. Tegan screenshot everything. Let him dig his own grave. But I could discern the toll it was exacting. Tegan had saved his daughters, saved me, and now Jacob was systematically demolishing his life in recompense. That night, I heard him on the phone with his solicitor. His ex-wife was leveraging the situation to file for full custody again. The neighborhood grievances were being added to her case. Even though he'd saved his daughters from mistreatment, he might lose them because he tried to save me too. I found him sitting on his back porch after the call, head in his hands. I'm sorry, I whispered. I've ruined everything for you. He looked up, eyes fierce. No, Jacob ruined everything. Your mother ruined everything. The system that fails children like you ruined everything. You did nothing wrong. But my daughters will be fine. I've battled for them before. I'll battle again. He managed a tired smile. Besides, Nia says our case is robust. The clinic documented extensive injuries. The police in her county are taking it seriously. Jacob's going to have larger problems than spreading rumors soon. As if on cue, his phone rang. Nia. They're making a move tonight, she said, her voice excited through the speaker. The state police want to apprehend Jacob before he has time to destroy evidence or intimidate more witnesses. They'll be there within the hour. My heart pounded. This was it. Either they'd believe us, and Jacob would finally face justice. Or what if he convinces them too? I asked. He won't, Nia said firmly. I've ensured the appropriate people are handling this. Officers who specialize in these cases, who comprehend how predators operate. We waited, watching the clock. 40 minutes? 50? Then blue and red lights filled the street. But they weren't heading for Jacob's house. They pulled up to Tegan's. My stomach plummeted as the police car doors opened. 2 officers stepped out, their faces unreadable in the flashing lights. Tegan squeezed my shoulder gently before walking to the front door. Stay here with the girls, he said quietly. Whatever transpires, remember we have the truth on our side. But as he opened the door, I saw Jacob standing behind the officers, his face arranged in a mask of concern. My blood ran cold. Officers, thank the heavens you're here, Jacob said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. My stepdaughter's been absent for over 24 hours. This man has been filling her head with dreadful fabrications about me. The lead officer, a tall woman with graying hair, looked between Jacob and Tegan. Sir, we received a report that you're harboring a runaway minor and 2 children who were removed from their mother's custody. They're my daughters, Tegan said calmly. I have documentation showing their mother was abusing them, and this young girl came to me for assistance after being assaulted by her stepfather. Jacob's face contorted with practiced anguish. You see, he's turned her against me. I've raised that girl for 3 years. I coach her friends' athletic teams. Ask anyone in this neighborhood. I'm a pillar of this community. The second officer, younger with a thick mustache, shifted uncomfortably. We need to see the children, sir. All of them. Tegan hesitated, then stepped aside. They're inside, but I'm not leaving them alone with him. He pointed at Jacob. As we walked into the living room, Adrian and her sister pressed against me, sensing the tension. The officer's eyes swept over us, taking in the girl's fading bruises, my notebook still on the coffee table, the blanket I'd wrapped around myself the night before. She needs to return home, Jacob said, reaching for me. Her mother is terribly distressed. I flinched away from him, and the female officer noticed. Miss, are you injured? Before I could answer, Jacob interjected. She's always been overly dramatic. Invents stories for attention. That's why we've been considering counseling. I have clinic records from this morning, Tegan said, pulling out a folder documenting my injuries. And these are photos of my daughter's injuries from their mother's abuse. The male officer barely glanced at the papers. That's a matter for family court, sir. Right now, we need to return this minor to her legal guardians. But he hurt me. The words burst from me. He comes into my room at night. He touches me. She's confused. Jacob interrupted smoothly. Tegan here has been implanting these ideas. He lost custody of his own children. What does that convey? The female officer knelt down to my level. Sweetheart, has Mr. Travers touched you inappropriately? No. Tegan saved me. Jacob is the one who... Officers. Jacob cut in again. I possess text messages from my wife. Our daughter has been acting out lately, fabricating stories at school, seeking attention. We believe Tegan has been grooming her, exploiting her vulnerability. He pulled out his phone, showing them what appeared to be a conversation with Mom. My heart sank as I realized he'd been preparing for this, generating false evidence while we'd been constructing our genuine case. The younger officer read the messages, his expression hardening. Sir, he said to Tegan, I'm going to need you to step outside while we resolve this. I'm not leaving these children alone with him. Tegan said firmly. Are you refusing to comply with police instructions? The officer's hand moved to his belt. Nia chose that moment to arrive. Gwen right behind her. Officers, I'm a social worker from Riverbend County. I've been documenting this case. This child has disclosed severe abuse by her stepfather. Jacob's mask slipped for just a moment, anger flashing in his eyes before he recovered. More people he's manipulated. This is precisely what I feared. He's constructing a network to support his falsehoods. I have photographs, Nia said, holding up her phone, taken at Riverbend General Clinic this morning. Bruising consistent with assault. Probably self-inflicted, Jacob said quickly. Or Tegan did it to make me appear unfavorable. Officers, every minute she spends with him, he's corrupting her further against her family. The female officer stood up, looking conflicted. We need to adhere to protocol. The child needs to be returned to her legal guardians while investigations proceed. No. I grabbed Tegan's arm. Please don't compel me to return. He'll hurt me again. He said he would, he said. You see how hysterical she becomes? Jacob shook his head sadly. This is what I mean. Tegan has her completely brainwashed. Tegan's daughters began crying, clinging to their father. The scene was chaotic. Children weeping, adults arguing, police attempting to maintain order. And through it all, Jacob stood there with that concerned expression, playing the worried stepfather perfectly. Everyone calm down, the female officer said loudly. Sir, she addressed Tegan, I comprehend your concerns, but without a court order, we have to return the minor to her legal guardians. Then acquire a court order, Nia said. I'll file for emergency custody. Just grant us 24 hours. Mom's already en route to collect her, Jacob said. She's devastated, hasn't slept since her daughter vanished. As if on cue, Mom's car pulled up outside. She exited, and I was astonished to see she'd been crying. Her cosmetics were smeared, her hair disheveled. She looked like a worried mother, not the woman who dismissed my pleas for assistance. My baby, she cried, rushing toward me. Thank goodness you're safe. I was so terrified. I backed away, but she seized me, pulling me into a suffocating embrace. Mom, please. Jacob hurt me. You have to believe me. Shh, honey, it's all right. You're confused. Tegan implanted these ideas in your head, but you're safe now. Over her shoulder, I saw Jacob watching me. A small smile playing on his lips. He triumphed in this round, and he knew it. Ma'am, the female officer said to Mom, has your daughter made these allegations previously? Mom's performance was flawless. She's been struggling lately, acting out. We believe it's due to the divorce from her biological father. Jacob has been nothing but patient and affectionate with her. That's not true. I struggled against her grip. You know what he does. You must know. Officers, Tegan said desperately. I have documentation, months of observation, photographs, notes. This child is in danger, and I have a restraining order, Jacob said, pulling out more papers. Filed this morning. This man has been stalking my family, photographing my stepdaughter, watching our house. The officers examined the paperwork. I could see their expressions changing, subscribing to Jacob's narrative. Tegan looked stricken as he realized Jacob had outmaneuvered us. Sir, you're going to need to keep your distance from this family, the male officer said to Tegan, and will need to notify Child Protective Services about your daughter's situation. My daughters are abuse victims, Tegan said. I have custody papers, medical records, which we'll review. The officer cut him off. But right now, this child needs to return home. Mom began pulling me toward the door. I dug my heels in, grabbing onto furniture, fighting with every ounce of strength I had. No, please. He'll hurt me. Tegan, don't let them take me. Tegan moved to assist me, but the male officer stepped between us. Sir, do not interfere. Dad, Adrian cried out. Don't let them take her. She's scared like we were scared of Mommy. Her words hung in the air for a moment. The female officer paused, something flickering in her eyes, but Jacob was prepared. You see, he's even got his own children involved in his delusions. Officers, this man is dangerous. Who knows what he's been doing to those girls? That was it. The female officer's expression hardened. Sir, we're going to need you and your daughters to come to the station for questioning. What? Tegan stared at her in disbelief. I'm trying to shield a child from abuse, and you're treating me like a criminal. Just routine questions, she said. But her tone suggested otherwise. Mom had dragged me to the doorway. I made one last desperate attempt, breaking free and running to Nia. Please, you said you'd help. You said you'd file reports. Don't let them take me back. Nia held me tight. I am filing reports, but I cannot prevent the police from returning you to your legal guardians. Not without a court order, which she won't acquire, Jacob said confidently. Because judges don't grant custody to random social workers based on a troubled child's fabrications. The male officer gently but firmly separated me from Nia. Come on, miss, time to return home. As they led me out, I saw the neighbors watching from their windows and driveways. Jacob had turned them all against Tegan. They looked satisfied, observing the predator being questioned by police while the concerned parents rescued their child. Mom pushed me into the back seat of her car. Through the window, I watched the police leading Tegan and his daughters to their patrol car. Adrian pressed her small hand against the glass, tears streaming down her face. We stared at each other. 2 children failed by the adults meant to protect us. The drive home was silent, save for Mom's sniffles. Her performance had ceased the moment we departed Tegan Street. When we pulled into our driveway, Jacob was already there, standing by the front door with his arms crossed. Go to your room, Mom said coldly. We'll address you later. I ran inside, but Jacob caught my arm in the hallway. He leaned close, his breath hot on my ear. You believe you're clever? You just exacerbated things for yourself and for Tegan. He released me with a shove. I stumbled to my room and slammed the door, collapsing on my bed. Outside, I could hear Mom and Jacob conversing in hushed tones, planning their next maneuver. An hour later, Mom came in without knocking. She sat on my bed, but her expression wasn't maternal. It was cold, calculating. Do you comprehend what you've done? She said. Jacob's reputation could have been ruined. We could have lost everything. He harms me, I whispered. You know he does. She slapped me. Not hard enough to leave a mark, but sharp enough to shock me. Jacob provides for us. He loves us. And you tried to demolish him with your falsehoods. They're not falsehoods. The police believe they are. The neighbors believe they are. Everyone believes they are, except that creep next door who's probably going to jail for abducting his own daughters. She stood up. You're grounded. No phone, no computer, no leaving this room, except for school and meals. And if you tell anyone else these lies, matters will become much worse. For you and for Tegan. She left, locking my door from the outside. I heard her footsteps fade, then Jacob's heavier ones approaching. He didn't enter, just stood outside my door. Sweet dreams, princess, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. We have all the time in the world now? I curled into a ball, pulling my blankets over my head. Tegan was at the police station. His daughters were probably being returned to their abusive mother, and I was trapped, more isolated than ever. The next few days blurred together in a nightmare of seclusion. Jacob had installed a new lock on my door, one that only secured from the outside. He controlled when I could leave my room, always watching, always smiling that terrible smile. At school, I tried to confide in my teacher, but Jacob had gotten there first. He'd met with the principal, explaining how I'd been acting out and inventing terrible stories about him. How Tegan had been filling my head with falsehoods. They looked at me with pity now, not concern. Your stepfather is worried about you, my teacher said gently. Perhaps you should speak to the school counselor about why you're uttering these things. The counselor was no better. She'd already been briefed by Jacob, who had painted himself as the concerned father dealing with a troubled child. Every word I spoke was filtered through that lens. Sometimes, when we're distressed, we construct stories to explain our emotions, she said. Have you been feeling anger about your parents' separation? This isn't about the separation. Jacob touches me. He enters my room. He has... Mr. Travers been telling you to utter these things? She interrupted. Your stepfather mentioned he's been demonstrating concerning interest in you. I conceded. Jacob had prejudiced everyone against me, just as he prejudiced them against Tegan. I discovered what transpired with Tegan through whispered conversations I overheard. The police had questioned him for hours. His ex-wife had appeared with her solicitor, demanding her daughters back. Without the bruises being fresh, and with Jacob's campaign against him, she convinced the police that Tegan had abducted them during her custodial time. The girls had been returned to their mother. Tegan had been released, but warned to stay away from all children in the neighborhood, including me. The restraining order meant he couldn't come within 500 feet of our property, but Tegan didn't relinquish hope. I saw him sometimes, walking his dog at the precise edge of the restraining order boundary. He'd look toward our house, and I'd attempt to signal him from my window, but Jacob had noticed. Seems like Tegan can't take a hint, he said one evening, standing behind me at my window. Perhaps I need to help him comprehend. The next day, Tegan's car tires were slashed. The day after that, someone spray-painted Predator on his garage door. Jacob had alibis for both incidents, of course. He'd been at work with dozens of witnesses, but I knew he was behind it. Just as I knew he was behind the sudden difficulties Tegan faced at work. The anonymous complaints to his employer about his unsettling behavior around children. 2 weeks after I'd been forcibly returned home, everything escalated. Jacob had resumed his nighttime visits, each one worse than the last. I tried barricading my door with furniture, but he'd simply removed it all while I was at school. That night, I heard him approaching down the hallway, but then I heard something else, a soft tapping at my window. I rushed over to see Gwen Garrett standing in our backyard, holding a small light. Open the window, she mouthed. I struggled with the latch Jacob had installed, but managed to crack it open a few inches. Tegan sent me, she whispered urgently. He can't come himself because of the restraining order, but we know you're in peril. Naya's been battling to secure an emergency hearing. We just need a little more time. I don't have time, I whispered back, hearing Jacob's footsteps drawing closer. He's coming tomorrow night, Gwen said quickly. Be prepared. We're going to... My door opened and Jacob stood there, his face dark with fury. Gwen ducked below the window, but he'd seen her light. Who were you conversing with? He demanded. No one. I was just... He traversed the room in 2 strides, shoving me aside to look out the window. Gwen was gone, but he observed the disturbed grass where she'd been standing. That old... He snarled. She's collaborating with Tegan, isn't she? He seized my arm, squeezing hard enough to bruise. What did she tell you? What are they conspiring? Nothing. He just shook me hard. Don't deceive me. I know they're planning something, but it won't succeed. I'm too astute for them. He stormed out, and I heard him on the phone with Mom. Within minutes, they were both in the living room strategizing. I pressed my ear to my door, attempting to overhear. We need to discredit her too, Jacob was saying. Make it appear as though she's part of Tegan's delusions. I'll contact the police tomorrow. Mom concurred. Tell them she's been harassing us, assisting Tegan in stalking our daughter. No, superior idea. I could hear Jacob smile. We'll make it seem as though she's been aiding Tegan with something graver. Plant some evidence. Let the police draw their own inferences. My blood ran cold. They were going to frame Gwen just as they turned everyone against Tegan. I had to caution her. But how? I was locked in. No phone, no computer. The window was my sole recourse, but Jacob would be watching now. I waited until the house was silent, then tried the window again. It was securely fastened. Jacob must have secured it from the outside while I was in the bathroom. I was completely ensnared. The next day at school, I tried to find anyone who would listen. But Jacob's poison had diffused too extensively. Teachers redirected me to the counselor. The counselor discussed my fixation on these narratives. Even my friends avoided me now, their parents having warned them about my falsehoods. During lunch, I saw a police cruiser in the school parking lot. My heart leapt. Perhaps they were here to investigate Jacob. But then I saw him walking out of the principal's office with 2 officers shaking their hands, looking concerned and paternal. He saw me watching and winked. That afternoon, I was summoned to the principal's office. The same 2 officers were there along with the principal, the counselor, and Mom. "Honey," Mom said, her voice syrupy sweet. "These officers need to ask you some questions about Gwen Garrett." The female officer leaned forward. "We've received some concerning information about Mrs. Garrett's relationship with Mr. Travers, and we understand she's been attempting to contact you." I knew this was a snare, but I didn't know how to evade it. "She's just worried about me." "Worried or involved in something improper?" the male officer asked. "Your stepfather discovered some disturbing photographs on Mr. Travers' computer. Photographs of children, including you." "That's not true," I protested. "Jacob is lying. He's fabricating all of this." "Because?" "Because what?" Jacob interrupted, his voice gentle but his eyes hard. "Because I care about your safety. Because I'm trying to shield you from predators." "You're the predator," I screamed, jumping to my feet. "You're the one who hurts me? You're the one who—" Mom grabbed me, pulling me back down. "You see, this is what Tegan has done to her. Filled her head with these terrible notions. Now, Gwen is involved, too, assisting him in manipulating our daughter." The officers exchanged glances. I could see they believed every word. "We'll need to question Mrs. Garrett," the female officer said. "And we'll need you to keep away from her," she added to me. "For your own security." I felt the walls closing in. Jacob had systematically eliminated everyone who could assist me. Tegan was neutralized by the restraining order. His daughters were back with their abusive mother. Gwen would soon be under investigation. Nia was fighting the system, but the system was rigged in Jacob's favor. That night, Jacob came to my room with a smile. "You comprehend how this operates?" he said, sitting on my bed. "I dominate this town. I control the police, I control your school, and I control you." He reached for me, and I scrambled away, but there was nowhere to go. "Tegan can't rescue you. That elderly lady can't rescue you. No one can rescue you. So, you might as well cease fighting." I kicked at him, screaming, hoping Mom would hear and finally do something. But she never came. Jacob left eventually, leaving me sobbing on the floor. I crawled to my window, desperate for air, for escape, for anything. That's when I saw it. A small piece of paper tucked into the window frame from outside. I managed to work it free with my fingernail. It was from Tegan, his handwriting cramped and urgent. "Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Be ready. T." I didn't know what he was planning, but it was my sole hope. I tucked the note under my mattress and tried to sleep, counting down the hours until 3 p.m. The next day dragged by. Jacob watched me more closely than ever, as if he sensed something was imminent. He'd taken the day off work to keep an eye on matters, he said. At 2:45, I heard sirens in the distance. Jacob went to the window, frowning. The sirens grew closer, and I saw smoke rising from somewhere in the neighborhood. "Power surge at the Davisons," Mom said, looking out another window. "Looks like a serious electrical fire." Jacob cursed. The Davisons were 3 houses down, close enough that the emergency services would want to evacuate surrounding homes as a precaution. Sure enough, an electrician knocked on our door minutes later, accompanied by a fire official. "Ma'am, we need everyone to evacuate while we get this under control." "Of course," Mom said, grabbing her purse. "Honey, get your shoes." Jacob looked suspicious, but couldn't argue with the fire department. As we filed out of the house, I scanned the crowd of neighbors gathering on the street. There, Tegan, standing at the very edge of the restraining order boundary, his eyes locked on mine. In the chaos of the evacuation, with firefighters rushing around and neighbors milling about, Jacob's attention was divided. He was trying to watch me while also maintaining his concerned citizen act. I started edging away from my parents, moving toward the cluster of children from the neighborhood. Jacob noticed and started after me, but a fire official stopped him to ask about our electrical panel. This was my opportunity. I broke into a run, weaving through the crowd. I heard Jacob yelling behind me, Mom screaming my name, but I didn't stop. Tegan saw me coming and started moving too, staying just outside the restraining order boundary, but heading for his car. I could hear Jacob crashing through the crowd behind me, shouting for someone to stop me. "She's confused," he yelled. "She's not safe. Someone stop her." But in the chaos of the emergency evacuation, no one paid attention to one running child. I reached the boundary line just as Tegan reached his car. He couldn't cross to help me. That would violate the order and give Jacob everything he needed to have Tegan arrested. "Run to Gwen's house," Tegan shouted. "Nia's there with papers." I veered left, sprinting toward Gwen's house 2 streets over. Behind me, Jacob had given up on getting help and was chasing me himself. He was faster, gaining ground. My lungs burned as I ran, my legs shaking from weeks of being locked in my room. I could hear Jacob's footsteps getting closer, his breathing heavy with rage. Gwen's house came into view. The The front door was open. Nia standing on the porch with another woman in a tailored suit. Hurry, Nia called. I pushed myself harder, but Jacob's hand brushed my back, grabbing my shirt. I twisted away, stumbling, but staying on my feet for just a few more yards. Got you. Jacob's hand closed on my arm, yanking me backward. But we were in Gwen's yard now, and the woman in the suit stepped forward. Let her go, Mr. Jones. I'm Judge Paige Harper from Family Court. I've just signed an emergency protection order. Jacob's grip loosened in shock. What? You can't. I can, and I have. Judge Harper said calmly. Based on the evidence Ms. Nelson presented, including medical records, photographs, and sworn statements from multiple witnesses, I'm placing this child in emergency protective custody. This is abduction, Jacob sputtered. I'll have your position terminated. You'll do nothing, Tegan said, appearing at the edge of the yard, still carefully outside the restraining order boundary. Except face the consequences of what you've done. More sirens approached, but these weren't emergency services. 2 police cruisers pulled up, and officers I didn't recognize exited. State police, not local. Jacob Jones. One said, we have a warrant for your apprehension on charges of child maltreatment, a sexual assault of a minor, and witness intimidation. Jacob's face went white. He looked around wildly, seeing Mom running up the street, seeing the neighbors starting to gather, seeing his carefully constructed world crumbling. This is an error, he said. But his voice had lost its confident edge. I'm a pillar of this community. I coach athletics. I operate a charitable organization. You're a predator, Gwen said quietly. And we have proof. As the officers approached with restraints, Jacob made one last desperate attempt. She's lying. They all are. Tegan manipulated them. Check his computer. You'll discover things. I guarantee it. We did check his computer. One of the state officers said, we found the evidence you planted there yesterday. We also found your fingerprints on the data drive you utilized to transfer it. Your misstep was purchasing that drive with your personal card. Jacob's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Behind him, Mom had stopped in the middle of the street, her face a mask of shock. Mom, I called out. Some part of me still hoping she'd choose me. Even now, she looked at me, then at Jacob being handcuffed, then at the neighbors watching. I saw the moment she made her decision. This is a miscommunication, she said, rushing to Jacob's side. My daughter is troubled. She invents things. Jacob would never... Ma'am, Judge Harper interrupted. Your daughter has extensive documented injuries consistent with abuse. Multiple witnesses have come forward. Your husband has been apprehended, planting evidence to frame an innocent man. This is not a miscommunication. Mom's face crumbled, but not with realization or remorse, with anger at me. You've ruined everything, she hissed. Our life, our reputation, everything. No, Tegan said firmly. Jacob ruined everything. You enabled him. Your daughter survived despite both of you. The state police led Jacob away as he continued to protest. To threaten, to play the victim, but no one was listening anymore. The enchantment was broken. Neighbors who had shunned Tegan now looked ashamed. Parents who had believed Jacob's falsehoods whispered among themselves. The truth, so long suppressed, was finally in the light. What happens now? I asked Nia. Now you're safe, she said, putting her arm around me. You'll stay with a temporary foster family while we sort out the legal matters. Tegan is fighting to regain custody of his daughters. The evidence you helped gather about their mother will aid his case, and you'll need to testify against Jacob. I nodded, exhausted but relieved. It wasn't over. There would be hearings, testimony, challenging days ahead. But for the first time in so long, I could breathe. As the crowd dispersed, Tegan approached the boundary line. We stood there just feet apart, but unable to embrace, unable to properly thank each other. You saved me, I said. You saved yourself, he replied. I just assisted, and you helped rescue my girls. The judge is reviewing their case tomorrow, thanks to everything that's come to light. Gwen joined us, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry it took us so long to perceive the truth, to act upon it. You acted when it mattered, I said. That's what counts. The electrical fault at the Davisons was under control. A minor electrical issue that had produced a lot of smoke but little damage. Tegan smiled slightly. Convenient timing, I said. Very, he agreed. Almost like someone who understands electrical systems might have suggested to Mr. Davison that his old wiring needed inspecting, and that if sparks happened to fly at just the opportune moment, Tegan, Gwen scolded, but she was smiling too. As Nia led me to her car, I looked back at the neighborhood that had been my confinement. Jacob's house stood vacant now, Mom having fled to her sisters rather than confront the neighbor's judgment. Tegan's house had new graffiti. Someone had crossed out predator and written hero instead. It wasn't a perfect conclusion. I was heading to a foster home, uncertain of my future. Tegan still had to contend for his daughters. The legal battles ahead would be protracted and agonizing, but I was free. Jacob was in custody. The truth was known, and sometimes that's enough to commence healing. I watched from Nia's car as more police vehicles arrived. State troopers were establishing a perimeter around Jacob's house while crime scene technicians carried equipment inside. Through the chaos, I spotted Mom arguing with an officer near her car, gesticulating wildly. We need to proceed to the station, Nia said, starting the engine. They'll want your statement while everything's fresh. The drive took us past Tegan's house. He was standing in his driveway with Judge Harper, showing her documents. His daughter's case file, I realized. The judge nodded as she read, occasionally asking questions. At the state police station, everything progressed differently than my initial attempt to report Jacob. A female detective with kind eyes led me to a comfortable room with couches instead of metal chairs. She introduced herself as Detective Morgan Marlowe and explained she specialized in cases like mine. Take your time, she said, setting up a recorder. We have all day if we require it. I spoke for 3 hours. Every detail, every incident, every time Jacob had harmed me. Detective Marlowe never interrupted, never appeared skeptical. She took notes and asked gentle, clarifying questions. When I concluded, she had tears in her eyes. You're incredibly courageous, she said. Your testimony, combined with the evidence Tegan collected and the medical documentation, provides us with a robust case. While I was giving my statement, things were happening swiftly back in the neighborhood. Nia kept receiving updates on her phone. Jacob's computer had been seized. They discovered the surveillance camera footage from my bedroom. Hours and hours of it. The data drive he'd used to plant evidence on Tegan's computer contained traces of other files too. Unsavory files. He's going away for a considerable duration, Nia said quietly. That evening, I was placed with an emergency foster family, the Ellises, who lived across town. They were an older couple who'd been fostering children for 20 years. Eva Ellis prepared me soup while Edgar Ellis set up a bedroom for me. No locks on the doors here, he said gently. You can enter and exit as you please. I slept fitfully that first night, jumping at every sound, but no one came to my door. No one tried to hurt me. The next morning brought a flurry of activity. Nia picked me up early for a meeting with the prosecutor. She was a sharp woman named Paige Parker, who walked me through what would happen next. Jacob's been denied bail, she explained. He's considered a flight risk and a danger to the community. The trial won't be for several months, but we have a strong case. What about Mom? I asked. Paige's expression hardened. She's being charged as an accessory. The evidence shows she knew about the abuse and failed to protect you. She's out on bail, but has a no-contact order. She can't come near you. After the meeting, Nia drove me past my old neighborhood. I needed to see Tegan to thank him properly. The restraining order had been lifted now that Jacob was in custody. Tegan's house looked different. The predator graffiti was completely gone, painted over with fresh white paint. Neighbors were in his yard, the same ones who'd shunned him, helping repair his slashed tires and damaged property. He was on his porch with his daughters. They were back. Both girls looked healthier already, playing with new toys while Tegan watched protectively. You did it, I said, running up the steps. Tegan hugged me tightly. We did it. All of us together. Adrian and her sister joined the hug, and we stood there for a long moment. 4 survivors who'd found each other in the darkness. Gwen appeared from next door carrying a casserole. For your dinner, she said to Tegan, then turned to me. How are you holding up, dear? Better, I said honestly. The Ellises are nice. Good people, she nodded. I've known them for years. You'll be safe there. The neighborhood had transformed in just one day. Parents who'd pulled their children away from Tegan now brought them over to apologize. The woman who had suggested contacting Child Protective Services on him brought cookies and a tearful apology. I should have seen it, she said. Jacob was so convincing, but the indicators were there. Tegan was gracious, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. These people had been ready to destroy him based on Jacob's falsehoods. That afternoon, I had my first appointment with a trauma counselor. Dr. Patel was nothing like the school counselor who dismissed me. She listened without judgment and gave me tools to cope with the nightmares and anxiety. Healing isn't linear, she said. Some days will be harder than others. That's normal. The Ellises were patient with my struggles. When I woke up screaming that first week, Eva Ellis made me tea and sat with me until I calmed down. When I couldn't eat certain foods because they reminded me of Jacob, Edgar Ellis learned to cook new dishes. School was complicated. News of Jacob's arrest had spread quickly. Some children stared at me with pity, others with curiosity. My teacher apologized profusely for not believing me. I'm mandated to report suspicions of abuse, she said, tears in her eyes. I failed you. I'm so sorry. The principal held an assembly about recognizing abuse and speaking up. It felt too little, too late, but at least they were trying. 2 weeks into my new life, I testified before a grand jury. It was terrifying, but Paige Parker prepared me well. I spoke clearly about everything Jacob had done, everything Mom had ignored. The grand jury returned multiple indictments against both of them. Tegan testified too, presenting all the evidence he'd collected. His meticulous documentation painted a clear picture of Jacob's predatory behavior and the systematic way he'd isolated me. The judge in Tegan's custody case was the same Judge Harper who had signed my emergency protection order years earlier. She reviewed the evidence about his ex-wife's abuse, including new testimony from teachers who had noticed the girl's injuries but hadn't reported them. I'm granting full custody to Mr. Travers, she ruled, and ordering supervised visitation only for the mother, pending completion of parenting classes and anger management. Tegan cried when the ruling came down. His daughters clung to him, finally safe from their mother's violence. The criminal case against Jacob moved forward slowly. His solicitor tried various tactics, claiming Tegan had manipulated evidence, suggesting I'd been coached, even attempting to get the security camera footage dismissed. But Paige Parker countered every maneuver. Mom's case was more complicated. Her solicitor argued she was a victim too, manipulated by Jacob, but the prosecutor had evidence of her actively covering for him, threatening me to remain silent, choosing him over my safety repeatedly. 3 months after Jacob's arrest, I was called to testify in a pre-trial hearing. Seeing him in an orange jumpsuit, shackled and diminished, was surreal. He'd seemed so powerful before, so untouchable. Now, he was just a pathetic man in chains. I testified for 2 hours detailing the abuse. Jacob's solicitor tried to trip me up, suggesting I was confused, that Tegan had implanted ideas in my head, but I stayed calm and adhered to the truth. Tegan saved me, I said firmly. Jacob hurt me. Those are the facts. The judge ruled there was sufficient evidence for trial. Jacob's solicitor immediately tried to negotiate a plea deal, but Paige Parker wasn't interested in anything less than significant prison time. Mom's trial came first. I had to testify again, this time about her knowledge and complicity. It was harder than testifying against Jacob. Despite everything, part of me still wanted her to love me, to choose me. She was convicted of child endangerment and failure to protect. The judge sentenced her to 3 years in prison, suspended to 1 year with probation. She'd have to register as a child abuse offender, and could never have unsupervised contact with minors again. Mom looked at me as they led her away. No apology, no remorse, just anger that I'd ruined her life. Jacob's trial was a media circus. Community pillar exposed as predator, the headlines read. His charitable contributions, his coaching, all of it was revealed as grooming behavior. Other families came forward with concerns they dismissed because of his reputation. The security camera footage was devastating. The prosecutor had to carefully edit it to protect my privacy while still showing Jacob's pattern of abuse. The jury looked sick as they watched. Tegan testified about his observations, his documentation, how Jacob had systematically isolated me. Gwen testified about Jacob's threats and attempts to frame Tegan. Even some neighbors who'd believed Jacob testified about things they'd noticed in hindsight. Jacob took the stand in his own defense, still attempting to play the victim. He claimed I'd misunderstood his affection, that Tegan had twisted innocent interactions. But under cross-examination, his story disintegrated. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 25 years in prison with no possibility of parole for 15. Jacob screamed as they dragged him away, shouting that I'd ruined his life, that Tegan had manipulated everyone. But no one was listening anymore. After the trials, life slowly found a new rhythm. I stayed with the Ellises, who'd offered to be my long-term foster parents. They gave me stability and patience as I worked through trauma. Tegan and his daughters became like extended family. We had dinner together every Sunday. The girls and I bonded over our shared experiences, supporting each other through the healing process. Gwen became the neighborhood grandmother I'd never had. She taught me to knit, helped with homework, and always had fresh cookies waiting. The anniversary of my escape was difficult. I'd been in therapy for a year by then, making progress, but still struggling with nightmares and trust issues. Dr. Patel reminded me that healing takes time. You're not the same person you were before, she said. Trauma changes us, but you're stronger than you know. School improved gradually. I made new friends who didn't know my entire story, who liked me for who I was becoming rather than pitying who I'd been. Tegan secured a new position at a security firm that genuinely appreciated his attention to detail and protective instincts. His daughters thrived in therapy and at their new school, free from their mother's abuse. The neighborhood transformed too. Jacob's house was sold. A young family moved in who knew nothing of its history. The community became more vigilant, more willing to listen when children spoke up. I testified at several community meetings about recognizing abuse, about believing children, about the danger of predators who hide behind respectability. It was arduous, but essential. 2 years after Jacob's conviction, I spoke at a conference for social workers and law enforcement about my case. How the system had failed me initially, how one person's determination to document the truth had saved me. Tegan saw what others refused to see, I said. He risked everything to protect a child who wasn't even his. That's what we need more of. The Ellises officially adopted me on my 16th birthday. The courtroom was packed with everyone who'd become my real family. Tegan and his daughters, Gwen, Naya, even Detective Marlowe and Paige Parker. Judge Harper, who'd signed my emergency protection order years earlier, performed the adoption. It's wonderful to see you thriving, she said, signing the papers that made me officially Ellis. That night, we had a huge celebration at Tegan's house. The entire neighborhood came. The same people who'd once shunned him, now celebrating our survival and resilience. You saved my girls, Tegan said quietly, watching his daughters play with the other children. Your courage in speaking up gave me the evidence I needed to protect them. We saved each other, I replied. As I looked around at my chosen family, I thought about how different my life could have been if Tegan hadn't moved in next door. If he hadn't been watching, if he hadn't risked everything to help me. Jacob was serving his sentence, no longer a threat to anyone. Mom had disappeared after her release, moving across the country. I didn't miss her. The scars remained, physical and emotional. Some nights I still woke up in a panic. Some days I struggled to trust, but I was healing, surrounded by people who truly loved and protected me. That's the essence of survival. It's not a destination you reach, and then everything's fine. It's a journey you undertake one day at a time with the right people beside you. Tegan still lives next door to the Ellises now. We made sure to find a house near his when we moved. His daughters call me their big sister. Gwen moved to our new neighborhood too, unable to bear being separated from her chosen family. We're an unconventional family, bound not by blood, but by something stronger. The choice to protect each other, to believe each other, to never let another child suffer in silence. And every day I choose to continue healing, continue growing, continue living, because that's the best retribution against those who try to break me. I'm not broken. I'm not a victim.